Hello, everyone, and welcome to Greater Together 2020. My name is Chris Huset. I'm proud, extremely proud to represent the Board of Directors for Pillsbury United Communities. I took the chair position because I deeply believe in the organization's mission to co-create enduring change towards a just society. This year has shown us the depth of the challenges we face in our community and our collective responsibility to create a better future for everyone that lives here. Pillsbury United is leading that movement on multiple fronts, and they need us all working together to sustain the momentum. And that's what tonight's all about. Over the next hour, we'll see poetry and performances from our artistic team. We'll take walking tours with Pillsbury United changemakers, and we'll hear about the work they're doing block by block to transform this community. Along the way, you can join our live chat on either YouTube or Facebook. For your engagement and support, thank you. You're part of this movement, and together we all succeed. Now let's get things started.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Hashtag wear your mask.
No peace.
Hashtag terrorism.
No peace.
Hashtag fake news.
Hashtag all lives matter.
Hashtag Black Lives Matter.
Hashtag quarantine challenge.
Hashtag say their names.
Hashtag I can't breathe.
I am afraid. I am afraid of being perceived as ignorant. I am afraid of being perceived as anything that ends in IST or phobic. I'm afraid of being on the receiving end of someone else's justified anger. I'm afraid of the power and control of wealthy white people way over my head. I'm afraid of being connected to those white people in the eyes of strangers just because I'm white. And I'm afraid that no matter what we do, nothing's ever going to change.
I am afraid. I'm afraid of being invisible. I'm afraid of a society that only sees things as black and white. I'm afraid of making a mistake and being discarded. I'm afraid my children will never be proud of being Filipino because they don't see positive representations of themselves in the media. I am afraid that I am not enough.
I am afraid. I am afraid of being stolen or murdered like my loved ones, never to be seen again. Hashtag MMIW. I'm afraid that you don't even know what that means. Hashtag MMIW. Missing and murdered Indigenous women. I'm afraid of having children because America has poisoned our land, air, and water and cares more about profits than people. And I'm afraid of white supremacy and government policies intended to round up Black and brown bodies, to throw us in prisons and concentration camps. And people say, well, that's what they get. And I'm afraid that the time has come that we really need to start working together.
I am not afraid. I am not afraid of your fear of me, and I am not oblivious to the danger that your fear poses. I know hatred. I know brutality. I know discrimination. I know systemic oppression. I know the Middle Passage and slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and the preschool to prison pipeline and mass incarceration and the war on drugs and the war on poverty and how the American injustice system applies to just us. And I know blackface, Backstreet Boys and Malcolm Moore, and I know Clarence Thomas, Ben Carson, Kanye West, Diamond and Silk. I know, we know, but I also know that in the words of Ntozake Shange, we have never met an enemy that we cannot outlive. So I am not afraid. I'm not afraid because I know who we are. I know that we are powerful. I know that we are creative. I know that we are beautiful. I know that we are indomitable. We're here and we're not going anywhere. So I'm not afraid. I'm ready. I am ready to stay in the streets until the lily white towers of unearned advantages come toppling down. I am ready to use myself and everything in my possession to make change. I'm ready to fill in the gaps, the untaught history, so that my daughter knows that she is magnificent and unstoppable. I am ready to love myself so fiercely that you cannot help but love me too. I am ready to go to jail for justice. I am ready to shed my blood for equity. I am ready to die for our freedom. I am ready to die, and I am not afraid.
I'm ready to tell our story, the often untold, dismissed story. I'm ready to pass the baton to the next generation of truth tellers, the next Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, Jamel Hill, who were both journalists and activists. I'm ready to change the face and thus the narrative of every newsroom in our nation. I'm Harry Colbert Jr., Francis Ann Martin Glover's son, and I'm the editor of North News, and I'm ready.
I'm ready to take care of myself and my coworkers so we can be ready for the community. I'm ready to work for food justice where community can choose their own food from healthy options. I'm 100% ready to cultivate relationships and trust to build a community that is 100% ready to help each other. I'm Jovita Morales. I love kickboxing. I'm a mom of 2 young kids, and I'm the food shelf coordinator at the White House.
I am ready to use my artistic practice to listen to my inner voice so I can transform energy to make the world a better place. I am ready to create space for elders to find the community and tell their stories. I am ready to nurture joy through play, laughter, and the giant cardboard corn maze. I am Masanari Kawahara, founder of the Chicago Avenue Youth Stilting Club and a teaching artist at the Pillsbury House and Theatre.
I am ready to decolonize health and unlock the cultural and ancestral tools we know we have to heal ourselves. I am ready to experience my own healing and liberation. I am ready to see people define health for themselves, to experience health not as a state, but as a process. I am Sega Tamena. I am a sister, daughter, friend, and so much more. I am the Senior Director of Population Health at Pillsbury United Communities.
I am ready. I am ready to get middle schoolers ready for high school. I am ready to provide youth with a safe space to heal and release stress. I am ready to cultivate activism in young people, to work with 4 young girls to end the cycle of drug abuse within our community. I am Yvonne Hernandez, former PUC fan student, now studying political science at Augsburg University and a youth program coordinator at White House.
I'm ready to do the simple things like open a full-service grocery store. I'm ready to make a space for people to feel comfortable asking questions about their health and food choices with no judgment. I'm ready to welcome people in, seniors, community members, young people, to talk with them, to connect with them, to check in on them and create a sense of community. I am Lavelle Warfield, a 3rd-generation PUC employee and operations manager at North Market.
I am ready to touch our mission every day, to act, fight, move. I am ready to radically imagine Black and brown communities thriving. I am ready to leave nothing on the table, to give it our all, to get it right and realize our vision of justice. I am Adair Mosley, born in Kansas City, Kansas, raised in West Point, Mississippi, and St. Charles, Minnesota, and now a Minneapolis North Sider. I am president and CEO of Pillsbury United Communities.
Good evening and welcome to Greater Together 2020. I'm Antonio Cardona, a longtime staff member at Pillsbury United Communities and member of the leadership team. I'm joining you tonight from the Lynn Hall on Lyndale Avenue in Minneapolis. Thank you to our Breaking Ice team at Pillsbury House and Theatre, Amy Bryant, and my fellow Pillsbury United staff members for that moving introduction. And thank you all so much for being here. Wherever you're streaming us, YouTube or Facebook, there's a live chat happening throughout the program, so please join us in the conversation. Our theme tonight is Block by Block, an invitation to community transformation. Now, we come together at the end of a very unforgettable year. In the wake of George Floyd's killing, we have seen profound grief and trauma. We've seen COVID-19 pile on stress and loss for everyone, especially the most vulnerable families. Yet in the face of crisis, we see the beauty, resolve, and optimism in our community. Our assets are far greater than the challenges we face. Tonight, we are here to build and imagine a better future together. Pillsbury United is blazing the path as we have for the last 140 years. Our team is excited to share the transformative work we're doing and show how you can help us build a more just and equitable community. At Pillsbury United, we are community builders. We invest in people by removing the systemic barriers to a healthy future. We invest in place by strengthening social connections and pride in our neighborhoods. And we invest in prosperity by preparing everyone to participate in our economy. Our work happens on many levels, from human services delivery, through our neighborhood centers, to our innovative social enterprises, and to our advocacy and policy efforts. Our belief that change is possible when people have a say in their future is the foundation of our youth work across the city. Generations of young people have been uplifted through our integrated youth programs. One of those is Sisco. Let's hear from him now.
My name is Abdurazak Omar. I go better known as Sisco. We are going to take a tour and learn a little bit about the neighborhood. This is the Main Street, Cedar Ave. We're right in front of the Cedar Cultural Center with the art behind me, and also the historical building, the Riverside Apartments. This is predominantly a mostly refugee neighborhood, and it's predominantly Somali, with the second largest population being Oromo. It's very diverse of every ethnic around the world. This community is it's a community, it's a neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody, and we're all together. You know, everybody plays a role into making this community what it is. I mean, it made me who I am. The role that I'm in at PUC or everything else that I do is because of this community. It put me in the path that I am right now. Right now we're at Bryant Coil Center. In many ways, it serves the community. We have just over 2,000 youth just within the high rises, and Bryant Coil is the only space. Let's go take a look at the park around the Bryant Coil Center. You guys are in for a treat. It's kind of new. A lot of renovation happened recently, so let's go. We're at the Curry Park. We're on a soccer field, basketball court, and also the playground just recently opened. And there's a walking track because there's a lot of elders in the neighborhood who need to get some activities in every day. So this is a great thing. All right, let's go into the Coil Center and take a tour inside. How you guys doing? Great. Now we're gonna go into my element and check it out. This is the Best Buy Teen Tech Center. Related to my work, this is where the magic happens. So we have about 3 Mac computers, about 14 Asus. We have 3D printers, heat presser for t-shirt printing, vinyl cutters. We have a bunch of cameras. Canon cameras is sponsored by that. Best Buy sponsored by Canon, so we have a lot of those. We also have a music studio, podcast station. It's access. I mean, the world is changing and everything is becoming more technology right now. So this is where the youth get access, and this is not provided in the school. Actually, right now, we're fortunate enough to start a new thing due to the grant we received. We are opening during school hours for youth in the neighborhood to come and do their virtual classes here, because not a lot of youth in the community have good internet or computer at home. So during the school hours, we're opening to about 8 youth at a time to come here and participate in class. We have a lot of art images here on the wall. As you can see, one of our students here, he put his face on LeBron James. My man here gave himself a 6-pack. So they do drawing, many different things, and this is our 3D printer. We printed a whole chess board from 3D printing using Pokemon characters. Behind me here is the studio, which we can go into it right now. This is the master control room, and behind me here is the booth. We have all kind of music instruments, piano, guitars, drums. This is not available to them anywhere else. Not in school, not at home, so just having this access and hopefully find interest in it, and if they want to keep that for as a career or just for fun, it's something that they would try it and have access to it. So we're at the Sisterhood Boutique. This is one of the PUC's youth entrepreneurship job site. This is girls-based entrepreneurship center. They learn customer service, selling clothes, branding, and all kind of stuff. The future I want to see for the youth in my neighborhood is having the same opportunity as everybody else, having the access, whether that be career, college, or everything. It's a bright future.
Thank you to Sisco, the team at Bryant Coyle Center, and the generations of young people who have come up through Pillsbury United and are now leading change in their neighborhoods. Another foundational piece of our work is food access, not just providing nutritious food to individuals and families, but investing in their capacity to sustain themselves. Ethan, our food systems manager, will take it from here.
My name is Ethan Neal, and I'm the food systems manager for Pillsbury United Communities. And we're here on Franklin Avenue here in Phillips, Minneapolis. Phillips is one of the most diverse neighborhoods, not just in Minneapolis, but the entire Midwest. We have the largest urban Native American population. We have a growing East African population and a Latinx population that's been here for years. Food access is a challenge for a lot of our communities, and here in Phillips, we're a part of that as well. And what really birthed our community meals program was the 1918 flu epidemic, when people were stuck at home, when there were so many people dying that they were delivering food to widows at their homes. And that's really what launched our meals program back in 1918. So 102 years later, we're still doing that, but it looks a lot different because we're bringing this food work into the 21st century. Since March 17th, which is when we closed officially for COVID, we have been continuing our service, especially our meals program and our food shelf. We've actually moved our entire operation from our food shelf into the gymnasium. We started seeing such an influx in the amount of people that we were serving that we had to stretch our legs and utilize what's considered one of the largest properties in Minneapolis Parks and Rec, that we were actually to move in here and take over half the gym to serve our people. So when you think of a food shelf, you think of a traditional food shelf model that's really based on canned food drives. Folks really going into their cupboards and donating whatever they have in their cupboards that might be expired, it might not have a label. And I can promise you, because of the canning system, it's going to be chock full of salt and sodium. And that really exacerbates every health condition that we find in the communities in which we serve. Diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, a lot of these things are food-related illnesses. And if you are literally trying to make things work and make ends meet, and you're relying on the nonprofit food industrial complex that is very typical that we see throughout this country, then you're gonna be eating a lot of canned food that's all about shelf stability. And yes, you're looking behind me that we are always gonna be a part of that. We're gonna partner with Second Harvest and the food group to make sure that we're bringing in these staple commodities for our communities. But as Pillsbury United, we've also pledged a lot of our dollars in our budget into sourcing healthy, culturally specific foods to serve our communities. Right now, we're at the Community Cafe at the Wade House in the Phillips Community Center, a place that used to be home to hundreds of people coming to get a free community meal every single day. And since COVID, since that March 17th date, we've been closed and operating our meals as an entirely to-go service. One of the things I look forward to most about the end of COVID and being able to reopen is be able to sit down here and share a meal with our neighbors once again. This is where we can really bring in a lot of our food work and our urban ag. We really have a high goal of trying to incorporate as much of our own farm fresh food as possible into our cafes. And the beautiful thing about here was it was a place for people to have connection and build community around food. But until it's safe for everyone for our community, we serve a lot of elders, a lot of people with disabilities, a lot of the unhoused, a lot of people that are on fixed incomes that come here. So we got to be really thoughtful about what that programming looks like in the future in 2021. Right now, we are in the backyard in what we call the backyard farm of the Wade House. This is where a lot of the food for our cafe comes from. We believe in farm to table for all. Something about eating healthy is a lot of people are priced out of that. And in our community cafe especially, we believe that if that is what you want to do, that you should have the right to healthy, organic, local food. And part of that is just to de-bourgeois the concept of farm to table. It's something that's become so price exclusive. It's become something for the upper classes to have and that the lower classes don't get an opportunity to participate in. And we don't believe in that. And that's an important part of our urban farming, where we can help provide that food, not just through our cafes, but through our food shelves as well. And it's all done through partnerships. Partnerships with United Way, for example, that help support our food shelves with the dollars that we can then invest in that healthy food. It happens with our partnerships with the Cargill Foundation that's been a huge supporter of our farming, including our hydroponic farm. So we always like to say that our work is really at the confluence of emergency food and emergent food, and that everyone gets to participate in that.
Thank you to Ethan and the staff across our system who make this vital work happen. Our food programs are a vivid example of Pillsbury United's approach. More than serving meals, we're rebuilding a connected, sustainable food system. When we nurture people's skills and self-sufficiency, we nourish a whole community. Food access is one way we're creating a better future for everyone in the community. And the arts are another. Let us show you how we are expanding access, strengthening pride in place, and amplifying voices across our neighborhoods. Faye and Noel will tell us more.
I'm Faye Price, the co-artistic producing director of Pillsbury House Theatre.
And I'm Noel Raymond, the other co-artistic director at Pillsbury House and Theatre. Our work in this neighborhood focuses on integrating arts both into the fabric of the community, the actual landscape of the neighborhood, and into all of the programs that happen at Pillsbury House. We're currently in the central neighborhood, and this was the heart of the African American community in South Minneapolis for a very long time. It's not anymore, it's changed quite a bit. It's currently one of the most diverse areas in the city of Minneapolis. We have long considered the nexus of our community to be at the corner of 38th and Chicago, which is the site of George Floyd's state-sanctioned murder just a few months ago. So this community has been in horrible grief and trauma and pain and anger and frustration, but the outpouring of offerings and art and support and love has been a really beautiful thing to watch in the midst of all of that pain, and a lot of that has to do with the artists who live here and who consider this place to be their sacred space.
There are so many artists in this area, and we are very privileged at Pillsbury House to be able to work with those artists, to support them, to find funding for them, so they can continue to put their words out there. So this is Pillsbury House. It's a very active place with a lot of creativity behind it. We like to think that it's something special here on the corner of 35th and Chicago. Let's go inside.
This is the Art in Commons studio that one of our staff artists built a year ago so that artists from the community can have space to work in, and then the community that comes through the building can be exposed to an artist at work. Since we're in this COVID moment, this has recently been repurposed, and on the weekends they're doing rapid testing for anybody in the neighborhood who needs it.
35th in Chicago, this big building, and you don't know what's inside. You come in, and then you go through one little door there, and you come into this really beautiful, intimate setting. 96 seats of professional theater. That's what we do here. That's what we create. We have 3 main stage shows per season, and we have an equity contract It's not community theater, though we do say we're of the community. We also have a program called Naked Stages that's for developing artists, emerging artists to hone their craft and work on shows so that they can have those shows realized here on stage. We have the Chicago Avenue Project, which is a program for youth. It's a mentorship program. We're not trying to be the children's theater or stagecoach or anything like that. They have their place in the world. What we do is we don't necessarily teach them about stage left and stage right. We get them to write or perform in plays that have been written for them. So if they're writing the play, they learn about playwriting, they learn about conflict, they learn about character, and then they have a mentor. They have a playwright mentor, they have a director mentor, so they have really close connection with 2 adult mentors while they develop this play. And then they add the actors, and the actors get to spend time with this child. So the child has a lot of attention paid to them, and it's more about them feeling their power and feeling ownership about their work and feeling good than it is about creating good theater. It's actually some of the funniest stuff you'll ever want to see what these kids do. But it's more about them developing almost leadership skills. And there's literacy skills involved in it too. And we have had kids come back to us after a certain amount of time that are in college, and they come back and say, wow, this was such an important place to me. This is where I found my voice. We also have Breaking Ice.
It's actually performance collage performed by some of the same actors that you would see on our main stage and the main stages all over the Twin Cities. And it's really aimed at showing what microaggression and unconscious bias and white privilege look like when they show up in relationship among people in a context like a workplace. And lots of different ways of looking at that to help people have real substantive, authentic conversations and work together to dismantle the systems that maintain those kind of structures that reinforce white supremacy. For us, art making is the process of imagining something that's never existed before and making it. And that skill, being able to access the creativity you have to dream something into the world and then make it, is such a critical skill and so important to understanding your own power and your own agency, and as a community, our collective agency to change the things that limit us and to dream something new into being and make it happen. And in that way, that's sort of how we fit into the larger PUC picture too. It's about how we tap into that power that exists in everyone and create a possibility for that power to do what it needs to do so that people can live the self-determined, imagined, beautiful lives they dream for themselves.
Thank you to Faye and Noel and the team at Pillsbury House for that tour. We just saw the power of the arts to build connections, elevate voices, and change hearts and minds. Connected to that work, we also want to call out Pillsbury United's community media initiatives, our KRSM community radio station broadcasting at 98.9 from South Minneapolis, and North News, our community newspaper created with North High student journalists. Now, the events of 2020 have shown the world that our cities have a long way to go towards equity. Throughout COVID, we see our frontline workers, overwhelmingly Black and brown, holding our communities together, and yet they lack the basic supports most of us sitting at home take for granted. After the pandemic is over, the deep challenges of poverty and unequal access will remain. We believe our community members deserve more than timid, incremental solutions. We need to address the systemic issues that concentrate social problems in our communities. And now for our final tour, Adair Mosley, our president and CEO, is going to highlight some of the ways we are working to drive equitable economic development in North Minneapolis and across the region.
Welcome to North Minneapolis. My name is Adair Mosley, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the president and CEO of Pillsbury United Communities. Pillsbury United Communities has had a long, rich relationship with the North Minneapolis community over the decades. And we see ourselves as community builders, whether we use arts and culture to do that or whether we do place-based development like a grocery store. We've had several neighborhood centers. There's been several organizations that have emerged out of Pillsbury United Communities, building on the assets that are in this community already. The North Minneapolis community has been extremely a resilient people, but it is not without the negative consequences of institutional and systemic racism. As an organization, we are doubling down and believe that our most bold and ambitious work needs to be right here. That this is the catalyst for change, and a thriving North Minneapolis means a thriving Minneapolis and a thriving Minnesota. Systemic racism and oppressive policies have had a huge effect on the residents of North Minneapolis and really prohibited individuals from having that thriving life. It's things like redlining that happened in the early 50s and racial covenants of policies that have categorically disenfranchised the residents in this community. And that's why today we're seeing some of the largest health disparities. We're seeing some of the worst educational outcomes for Black and brown students. We're seeing home ownership rates at a quarter of their white counterparts. But despite all of that, you continue to have individuals who are trying to make a way out of no way. We are on Plymouth Avenue in North Minneapolis. Plymouth Avenue, which once had many businesses along the corridor here, saw civil unrest in the 60s. I believe that many people have written a narrative about North Minneapolis that has resulted in it not having the level of investment that it needs. Because of that external narrative and just an overall disinvestment in community, we haven't seen the rebound or the resiliency through our systems and infrastructure, our businesses come back at the speed in which many would want for this community. Following the murder of George Floyd and the civil unrest that our city encountered, what we saw was already vulnerable communities, the problem being exacerbated, and a level of vulnerability because there has been a lack of investment, particularly in this community, as it relates to economic development, as it relates to growing Black and brown businesses. Pillsbury United Communities has had a long-standing and rich history of entrepreneurial and innovative work throughout our history. I think at the core of why North Market is here is because it's restored the dignity of a community that has been denied a basic asset, which is a grocery store. The genesis of every solution is starting with community and asking community that basic question of what do you need? But we know that in order to bring things like North Market to fruition, that we have to have the kind of cross-sector partnership that is going to get us really catalytic and transformative solutions in community. And North Market is a great example of that, where our health systems, the private sector, SuperValue in particular, and this community-based organization, Pillsbury United Communities, coming together to create this entity where we're blending both the health needs of a community, cardiovascular disease, diabetes prevention, but also wellness classes, cooking and food demonstrations. So it's a combination of all of those things coming together to create this magnificent and wonderful asset here in North Minneapolis. This is a place that many call home, including myself. This is the place we have decided that we are going to double down on as an organization to make sure it gets the investment that it has been long denied. What needs to come from that is big, bold, transformative solutions. So whatever we propose can't be incremental. It has to be transformative that lifts the individuals and families here up and out of poverty and up the social and economic mobility ladder. What it will take is transformative investment. And this is both the financial investment and also an investment in people, an investment in infrastructure. And then on top of that, changing the oppressive systems and policies that continue to be barriers to prosperity for the individuals living in this community. We are certainly, as an organization, meeting the acute needs of communities through basic foods, through youth programming, through family stabilization. But that alone is not enough. This is about aligning institutions and individuals in community around a shared vision. It's areas like this that we can put a community-centered design approach to of revitalizing. We can ask the community, what do you want to see in areas that have had disinvestment, and then being able to find the partners to strategically bring those visions to fruition. One of the core tenets of justice-built communities is land acquisition. We know that if we don't acquire the land today, that we run the risk of displacement and gentrification. So our goal is to be able to bridge that ownership to Black and brown individuals right here in North Minneapolis and throughout the city of Minneapolis. At its core, it's an economic development enterprise that's focused on closing that wealth gap and making sure that we can put economic prosperity in the hands of all those that aspire and want it. With the right level of investment, I believe with the right level of partnership and the right level of community centered, their voices centered in the process, that we can achieve a more equitable and just place in the next decade. We've seen it in other communities. We've seen it in communities that have had investment happen in it. We've seen place transform in a very short period of time. So we know it is possible. And so our goal is ultimately to usher that possibility into a community that has long and systemically been denied it, and tapping into the aspirations of community to make sure that all those that live and labor there can flourish.
Hello, everyone. I would like to express a deep thank you to Antonio Cardona for hosting our program this evening, to our staff that you saw on the screen and the other hundreds of staff that are within our organization, to our amazing sponsors who you'll see on your screen now, we thank you. To our board of directors, with immense gratitude to Marnie Bumstead, Nora Shapiro, who is responsible for the great storytelling that you witnessed this evening, and Heath Ruddock, we thank you for your stewardship of this incredible and impactful organization. No matter how you've arrived at this critical juncture, whether you've been on the road fighting for justice or just coming to a better understanding of the deep injustices in our society, we are here together. And where we go from here matters. The call to action this evening is, will you join us in the momentum of driving towards a more equitable and just society? The demands on us remain unchanged. We will need the creativity, imagination, and relentless optimism of all of those to be able to chart a new future. What you've witnessed tonight is the ingenuity of community builders charting an urgent journey towards the justice we all imagine. This agency continues to reinvent itself to meet the demands of a community that has been long denied their inalienable rights. Whether it's meeting the acute needs of our neighbors or launching new innovation like Justice-Built Communities that builds on the aspirations of our community, we are doing the work. And if you take one thing away from tonight, I hope that it is this. This is not a moment, but this is a movement. And movement requires galvanization, concentration, solidarity, and proximity. This is the work. And we need everyone who believes in this future, who believes in a just and equitable society, to be a part of it. As Antonio has eloquently discussed early on, 2020 has shown us that the time for complacency and apathy are no longer tolerable. Building a more equitable community will take the efforts of many. I invite you this evening to lean into this change. Please have the tough conversations about race and injustice in your homes, on your jobs, taking collective responsibility to remove the oppressive systems that have harmed Black and brown bodies. And ask more of yourselves. Demand more of yourselves. Demand more of your family. Demand more of your neighbors. Demand more of your community. Change is happening, and we can't take our foot off of the gas. If you haven't already, now is your opportunity to be able to donate to this movement. Please go to our website that is shown on the screen here. Your money will fuel this work, whether you make a one-time investment or a monthly recurring gift to this organization. Know that we will put your resources to work, and we will return a community better than we found it. For your generosity and trust in us, we are grateful and humbled. Know that Pillsbury United Communities will remain on the front lines with all of our community, building a more just future. As our gathering comes to a close this evening, we didn't intend to keep you long, because we wanted to be able to share a glimpse of the powerful work that we are doing each and every day, that we are fighting for those that live and labor in our community. We are removing the systemic barriers that stand in the way of human progress. We are on an urgent journey as an organization, and we are doing this work day by day and block by block. Singing us out tonight is the wonderful Regina Williams as she sings Fannie Lou Hamer's Freedom. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening and being a part of this work. We are greater together. Good night.
Hi, I'm so pleased to be here with you to celebrate and continue to uplift Pillsbury United Communities, co-creating change toward a just society. As Fannie Lou Hamer would say, to support whatever is right and bring justice where we've had so much injustice. I am here today to say that I'm not going to let anything turn me around. And because there's nothing like a song to find your truth in someone else's story, I would love it if you would join me, because we really are greater together. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let frustration turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let frustration turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let excuses turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let excuses turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. Injustice ain't gonna let injustice turn us round, turn us round, turn us round. Ain't gonna let injustice turn us around. We're gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom land. And we'll do it together, because I really believe we are greater together.